Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to say welcome to all of you again. Thank you for joining us today. We will be speaking with Dorontina Berisha on the situation in Kosovo. Dorontina, although she is still very young, is one of the most senior members of our department. She joined the department in late 2017, so at the very beginning. I think she was employee number 3 or 4 or something like this, as a student assistant then. And she was in the first group of people taking care of a huge teaching experience all of us needed to go through then, which is a class on legal research that we did then, Tina and me and some others together, for more than 4,000 students only on the internet. So the whole Corona crisis when it comes to teaching is something like a déjà vu for her and me, because of our experiences that we made in 2017 when we did this legal research class together. Again, only on the internet, needed to build up the whole structure within several weeks only, with more than 4,000 students. So that was something where we really worked together very intensely. But that's not why she's here today. Tina, since then, has been working at the department, helping us in set up a lot of the teaching environments that we are using, taking care of our social media initiatives, also working on the website and the content on the website, and also working substance related in her studies at the University of Vienna, at the department, and also outside of Austria, because she spent one exchange semester in the Silicon Valley, in particular at the Santa Clara University in Silicon Valley, where she again specialized in IT, IP, and data protection law with a special focus on artificial intelligence. So that might also be something we might touch a little bit perhaps today. But the main reason why you are here today is that your home country is Kosovo, and we will try to speak a little bit about how the legal situation in your home country at the moment is. Tina, so good to have you here. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm fine. Thank you.
Fine. So as I said, you are physically in Austria at the moment, and you spend most of your time in Austria. So you are not in Kosovo on a regular basis. Since when are you in Austria now?
Well, I was actually born in Vienna in Austria, but I still have my roots in Kosovo, and my parents are from Kosovo, and I visit my grandparents and all my relatives that I have in Kosovo on a rather regular basis.
Yeah, So you are one of those who can certainly compare the situation in Austria and the Kosovo then better than many others. Perhaps we start with a very basic question, which is, I mean, you will probably get that question quite frequently when you speak to Austrians. What exactly, where exactly, and how exactly is Kosovo?
Okay, so I'll start with the date when Kosovo declared its independence. It was in 2008, so almost 12 years ago. So Kosovo turned 12 years ago in February. Kosovo is in the center of the Balkan, neighboring, like the neighbors are, for example, Serbia or Albania. People in Kosovo speak Albanian, so people in Albania also speak like Albanian. And yeah, Kosovo is of course not in the European Union, but as of now, probably many people heard that Kosovo was in a war in 1998 to 1999. It was a rough time, and right now Kosovo is trying to get friendlier relations with its neighboring country, Serbia, and both are trying their best to come to an agreement right now and to better the chances to enter the European Union, so from both sides.
Yeah. And Kosovo, when it comes to the European Union, is a candidate country, correct?
Okay, yes.
Yes. Are there any expectations in internal politics in Kosovo until when the country wants to enter the European Union? So what would be a good estimation on this?
Well, I could just make an adequate guess, but as soon as possible. But as far as I see, and as far as at least at my perception, there still needs to be done a lot to improve the circumstances and the structures within Kosovo in order to be able to enter the European Union.
Yeah. And there's no date set internally. I mean, that the politicians promise that it should happen until X, Y, or Z that you are aware of.
I'm not aware of that, no.
Okay. And how many people live in the country?
About 2 million.
2 million. So rather small then.
Yeah,
Okay.
small.
Yeah. And when it comes now to the situation at the moment, how would you describe the corona-related situation in Kosovo at the moment?
Yeah, so one of the big problems is that right now in Kosovo we have rather strict measures taken by the government. One of the reasons might be especially because our healthcare system is not as developed and prepared for this situation compared to other European countries. So the measures that are taken by the government are pretty strict, and one of the reasons might be because we're not sure whether the hospitals will be able to handle the situation if the curve keeps on rising. So that's the situation right now. We have around 780 people that are infected in Kosovo, 203 already recovered, so almost 1/3. And unfortunately, 22 people died because of the coronavirus right now.
And what are the measures taken? So are they similar to the situation in Austria, or are they stricter, or?
They are definitely stricter. So first of all, you can go outside between 7 a.m. and 10:30 p.m. But the problem, or the main difference, is that in Kosovo, you have like a 90-minute slot. So you can go outside once a day for 90 minutes, so 1.5 hours. And you have those 90 minutes to take care of all the stuff you need to take care of, such as going to the doctor or getting food. And the time slot that you have depends on the second last digit of your ID number.
Oh, so that means that you need to I mean, not only it's only 90 minutes, but it's only during a given period of every day. So
exactly.
Okay.
Yes. So it's way stricter than in Austria. In Austria, you can go outside for a walk, for a run. You can go outside with your family member or with the people you're living in a household, obviously. In Kosovo, you have to leave. If you leave, you have to leave alone, unless you're under 16 or you're disabled and you just need someone helping you out.
And since when is this in force?
The first, if I'm not mistaken, it was in force on the 23rd or 4th of March.
So almost 2 months now.
Almost 1 month now, yeah.
No, we have the 29th of April now, and if it starts on the 3rd of March, or did you say 23rd? Oh, 23rd, I'm sorry. Okay, 23rd, so more than a month now. Okay, wow. Okay, that means that, and shops are open, so people who work in shops, they are exempt from that rule, right? So they obviously need to be there.
Yeah, grocery shops.
But grocery shops and
yes, but
are
malls
open.
and bars and restaurants and schools and universities are all closed.
Okay, and you, as an average person who doesn't work in any of those essential facilities, needs to go out only once a day, only for 90 minutes, only alone, and in a given period of time.
Exactly, and if you want to use, yes, and another, what also is like important to mention is that we do not have public transportation now. This is also one of the differences between Kosovo and Austria, and so people who do not have a car have a problem, obviously, and people who do have a car can drive, but as you mentioned, in a given slot, and in addition to that, there cannot be more than one person in a car. So people, even if they were allowed to work, for example, it wouldn't be able to commute or like go together to work like it is possible in Slovenia, as we heard in the last podcast session.
Yeah, Shiga mentioned this, right? That up to 4 people are allowed to join to drive jointly in one car. Yeah. Okay. And this is this is based on a law, or is it the government decreeing those measures, or how is that? It's the government.
Again, exactly. It's based on the orders or decrees of the government, but obviously they have to have a legal ground in order to do that. And we have 2 laws in Kosovo, the law on health and the law to prevent diseases. And there was currently actually a decision of the Constitutional Court of Kosovo deciding that those measures taken are not in line with the constitution because they restrict the right of freedom way too much.
So there was a decision by the Constitutional Court that they are not in line with the constitution, but they are still in force then, or
still in force, but till the first week of April, if I'm not mistaken.
First week of May.
First week of May, yes.
Okay. Wow. So the Constitutional Court decided that this is unconstitutional, and at the same time, it's still in place.
It is. So it needs some time in order to put it out of force. Yeah.
And it's not in place because, or it was declared unconstitutional because it infringes fundamental rights of the population because it's too strict.
Exactly. So one of the problems was that the orders taken by the government restricted the whole country, like the whole population. But it would be a different case if the government would have, prior to doing that, just contacted the local communities and looked at the situation at the local community and then adapt the measures. So it was necessary for the government to have a closer look at the local community and then decide whether this is necessary or not, and then adapt the measures. But just having one decree or order saying that those measures will be taken in place for all the communities was not in line with the constitution.
Okay, and what does the government say now on this? I mean, that's not something you really want to get in a crisis, an explanation from the Constitutional Court that what you're doing is unconstitutional and still proceeding with the same measures.
Yes. Well, the plans of the government right now are to get in contact with the local communities and see what the situation is like, and then have a decree for each community, depending.
Okay. So they are preparing this at the moment, but the situation, I would assume, is very dynamic. So it's very hard to decide at the moment how the development in any given community will be in 2 weeks or so.
Exactly.
And at the same time, this looks, at least in my perception, exceptionally rigid. What the population is supposed to do there. So do you think that the population supports these measures? Is that something people are debating?
So people are debating this, but right now in the center of the discussion right now in Kosovo is more like what happened with the government, that it was put out of place or overthrown by the parliament. The population right now, as far as I see, the mood right now is that people are just scared and afraid to get infected, and they know that the healthcare system is not as developed as in other European countries. So they are trying their best to comply with the measures. But of course, it's difficult because if you look at the average Albanian citizen right now in Kosovo, they're pretty young compared to the average person in Italy, for example. So, and the summer is approaching, so people want to go outside, people want to enjoy the weather, people want to stay together. So it's getting harder for people to comply.
Yeah. Somebody in the comments tells us that the judgment of the Constitutional Court can also be read, so it's already published. Could you perhaps give me a little bit more of details about the argumentation of the government on this judgment now? So whether is the argument the Constitutional Court is wrong because they underestimate the dangers, or is the argument more we will follow what the Constitutional Court says, although we don't think that it's the correct way to deal with it? Or what exactly is the approach, the political approach they are choosing at the moment?
Yeah. So as far as I see, it's more of the second case. When this case came to the Constitutional Court, of course, the government was arguing that they had the legal basis, as I mentioned, those two laws in Kosovo. But after the decision of the Constitutional Court came, the government decided that they will just comply and do like an order for each community.
Yeah, but isn't it a problem then that until this order of each community is in place, we still have, I mean, several weeks, as you say now, of a status that is unconstitutional?
Yes, that's true. I'm not sure by the date how long those orders can be enforced. But I don't think, if that's really the case, if it will be, if it takes 4 weeks, then definitely that will be a problem, because people would have to comply until there are new orders.
Mm-hmm. And do people still comply with this then, or is there simply ignore? I mean, if I were there and if I knew that the Constitutional Court had declared something as illegal, I would probably start thinking about whether I still need to follow this legally and politically. And perhaps my answer would be, actually, I take the risk and I don't care and I simply leave. Is that happening?
I cannot speak for everybody, but I'm pretty sure that this is happening in some cases. But overall, my perception is that people are trying to do their best to keep the infection rate as flat as possible. So I believe that people still are trying to comply with those measures, although they are unconstitutional, in order to make sure that people get not infected. Because in the end, if the healthcare system cannot deal with this crisis, people will die.
Okay. And how can it be that the Constitutional Court decided so quickly? Because
That's
one
a
of
really good question.
the issues we have here in Austria is that, I mean, there's plenty of debate, but no decision. So how can that be?
That's a good question. I was myself surprised how fast they decided. I simply think that the court took this case as a priority. And as far as I know, it was also started by the president himself.
Of the court, of the Constitutional Court, or?
The president of Kosovo.
The president of Kosovo, yes, filed the complaint?
Yes, that's...
Against a measure undertaken by the government?
Yes, so, because of...
Okay, so that sounds really interesting. So,
yeah. So there's a lot going on, like speaking from a political perspective right now.
So this would be I mean, to translate this into Austrian politics, that would mean that Alexander van der Bellen complains against a measure undertaken by the government in front of the Constitutional Court. This is the situation?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So obviously the president then is not of the opinion the government has in what should or should not be done, correct?
Yes. So the people are from two different parties, and there have been some political reasons, and they didn't come to an agreement. And in the first place, there's a clause or provision in the Constitution of Kosovo that says that the president can declare, when the circumstances are given, declare that the state is in an emergency situation. Then the interior minister agreed on that, and then the minister president didn't agree with them and then fired the interior minister, which led to the parliament overthrowing the government. Yes, so that's a legal situation right now, or the political.
So that sounds like a serious political crisis then, in the middle of a very serious catastrophic crisis.
Exactly, right at the beginning of the corona crisis. All of this started. The population is pretty much, so as far as I see, frustrated and disappointed because the parties couldn't just come into an agreement on how to do and how to deal with this crisis, but instead of working together, they fell apart.
Okay, and what exactly would be the position of the president? Would he want more? Would he want stricter measures or less strict measures, or what exactly is the point of view the president has on this at the moment?
As far as I see, he wanted to declare the emergency state, and it would mean that he would have more power and competences.
And he needs, but he did not do this so far, or did he?
He couldn't do that.
He couldn't do that because he would need the government for this, and the government does not support this.
There needs to be some agreement, as far as I know, and it didn't come to this because the government in the end even fell apart.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the president files a complaint against one of the measures of the government, and the Constitutional Court declares the measure as illegal. But there is a period of time in which this illegal act is still in force now until the beginning of May, right? So that sounds really uncomfortable, I would call it.
Yes, I'm not quite sure about the date until it still is in force, but I just talked the other day with my relatives, and they still are saying that they have this time slot and where that they are supposed to go outside within this time slot and are trying to deal with the situation.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So that sounds like several PhD theses in law and in political sciences that you're telling me. Okay. And the situation now when it comes to the younger generation, because as you said, the average age of the population is very young. So what about schools and universities? Are they open? Are they working?
They are all closed. Right now, well, teachers and professors switched to e-learning right now. They're using Google Classroom, they're using Zoom, they're using different live conference tools. One interesting thing that is also different to Austria, for example, is that pupils, so children between 6 and 10 years old who are in primary school, they are taught via television. This is really interesting. So I think 4 or 5 days a week from noon to 3 o'clock, around that time, there's a teacher that gives lessons through the TV, and there's a task force within the Ministry of Education that provides the room and the cameras and all the technical equipment and technical stuff for the teachers to be able to go to that schoolroom in Pristina and to be able to give lessons that can be then broadcasted.
Yeah. I mean, if you say that they use Zoom and other instruments of the internet, the internet needs to be working, and it needs to be working in every or most of all the households, right? And so is it the case that an average student or an average pupil has internet access at home and is able to follow these programs if it's not TV based on a regular basis?
I wouldn't say so. There are definitely people who don't have internet access, and I think that's one of the reasons why the government also decided to do this via the television, especially for the young ones who really need someone to give them lectures. A student could, but it is definitely a problem for students who do not have internet access.
Yeah. Okay. Also, that's all of this sounds really disturbing, I would call it. Also, when it comes to the health system, because as you said, the health system per se is relatively weak
compared to other
European countries. Let's call it like this. So so what's then the average mood of the population? Do you think that I mean, you said that most of them still follow the measures taken of the government, but and try and hope that the situation will be better. Would it be that what you feel, or is it more about that they call for more significant changes in whatever direction that might lead, or they try to leave the country, or what is the average mood, I would say?
So the average mood right now, as far like my perception, as far as I can see from the media and social media that I'm following, is that the population is trying the best just to comply with the measures and to not move around, to just do his or her own part to just flatten the infection curve, because people might die in the end and then the healthcare system might collapse. But so that's the situation right now. Some people are, of course, afraid because they cannot work and they need the money, but the government is taking measures to help them out. So people who, for example, worked and have a valid contract, and people who can prove that, they get 170 euros per month. And for families that do not have a member who's working, they get something between 130 and 40 euros, as far as I remember. So the government is trying to help out. Of course, this is also a question of money and of time. I don't know how long this will be possible, but the government also tried to get funds from the outside. It opened a bank account and asked for help, especially from the Albanian diaspora. So people, Albanians living outside of Kosovo, asking them to donate money. And people all over the world are donating money, which is a really good sign of solidarity and trying to help the people to get out of this crisis. So people are, say, like donating 10 euros or 20,000. So everything in between.
And I two questions. One on the diaspora. So how many, do you know how many Kosovarians live in Vienna? And do you have regular contact with those groups?
I don't know. I don't have exact numbers, but I do. Well, I attended an Albanian class. So in my school, there was no Albanian in my class, or there were just a few of them in my schools so far. But I attended an Albanian class because I wanted to improve my Albanian skills. And that's where I came into contact with a lot of Albanian teenagers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so there is an active community here in Vienna, but the active community is not very successful in making the average Austrian with no roots on the Balkan aware of what's really happening there, in particular at the moment, right? So there is no real coverage, at least in the news, on the issues in the country, or is there? And I'm just missing it.
I'm not aware of it, honestly.
Yeah.
So it might be that I'm also missing it, but the probability of you missing it and me missing it is different.
Yeah. So why is this? Do you have an explanation for this? Do people who are here try not? Are they not successful, or are they not trying in making this known to the average population in the country here?
You mean also to the population that are like non-Albanians?
No, I mean to the average Austrian who doesn't have any roots on the Balkan, right? I mean, I would assume that what you're telling me here about the political crisis is something what I would assume quite a lot of lawyers could be very interested in if they knew about it. And I don't think that too many of the average Austrian lawyer having no backgrounds in Kosovo has any idea about what's going on there. And my question is now why this is the case.
Yeah, I just simply think that the news are not as important for Austrian citizens. That's my guess, at least. And especially now, I mean, in Albanian news, it was like every day I saw Albanian news about this, like it was like ongoing the last few weeks, and my parents were watching, and all the Albanians from all over the world were watching, but it was just, as far as I see, just restricted to Albanians. And since the coronavirus and everything is going on right now, there are probably more important things the countries need to take care of, and I think that also applies for Austria.
Yeah, I mean, one of my personal lessons that I learned from all these conversations that we are having on this channel is now how many important developments in different European countries we simply don't see in Austria and in German-speaking countries at the moment, because we are so obsessed by our own situation, and that hinders us to go a little bit outside of Austria in our news coverage. That's really striking.
But that's why I'm really happy that we're having this podcast right now, because we had this podcast with people from Argentina, UK, United States, from different countries, Slovenia, Kosovo, a state that was founded 12 years ago and is not really known to everybody. So I'm happy that we have at least this platform where we can discuss about the developments and what is going on.
Yeah, certainly. Perhaps let's come back once again about the question about the political implications of the situation, without asking you any details about any specific politicians or any political movement, but just about the overall situation. So the Constitutional Court declared this to be invalid. It will be replaced by something which works more on the regional level, and then will that probably be challenged again, or do you think that the president will then support this approach? Or is there any, I mean, if the underlying conflict is not about the measures, but more about whether or not to declare a state of emergency, then this conflict will not be solved by simply changing the focus of the measures, right? So it might be quite likely then that the conflict continues, correct?
That's my guess too, honestly.
Okay, and that means that in a way the system is stuck, right?
Yes,
Because, yeah.
Right now it's definitely not the right time to be working against each other, but to work together and try to improve the situation for the population and during this crisis. And I personally just hope that I simply hope that people or the parties just come to an agreement and try to improve the situation for pupils, and if they for the population, and if they have any other political reasons, they can continue with this, but after this crisis at least.
Is anybody calling for an election? I mean, because that would be the typical reaction in normal times.
Yes. The thing is, well, it's planned to have them in autumn, so after summer, but we will see what the situation will be like because of the coronavirus. A lot of people, as I said, are really frustrated about the political situation right now because they were really hoping that this coalition of those two big parties who were elected, that they will change something and for a better, and that they will make some major changes. But it didn't. In the end, it didn't work out, and people are so. In Austria, for example, people went to the balconies, right, to sing together and show solidarity during these times. In Kosovo, it's a sign of protest. So people go outside to the balconies and bang the pans and pots and make noise in order to show that they are frustrated and.
And the elections in autumn are elections to the parliament.
Probably, yes.
Yes. And it's unclear yet whether they are going to be possible, obviously.
Yes, so it really depends on the situation right now, how this is going to develop, and whether it will be possible to. Yes. I mean, people were discussing to go outside on the streets and protest, but obviously this is not the right time to do so. There can be other means or ways to do so, to protest via social media, which is happening all the time, by the way. But going outside is not an option right now.
Yeah, so there are protests, but they are on Facebook or I don't know, on YouTube or wherever.
Facebook, especially on Facebook.
It's mainly Facebook. Okay, and does that have any impact on the day-to-day situation? Not really, right? Because you can't see Facebook entries on the streets, and so they can rather easily be ignored, right? So, okay, wow. And so if you see all this, do you have any personal guess about how this will develop?
So, like, you mean like the political situation or the corona?
Yeah, I mean mainly the political situation, meaning that there is protest in the country which is not able to be formulated in the traditional way, neither by elections nor by demonstrations, but transferred into social media where they can easily be ignored. And then on top of all this, we have the catastrophic event of corona probably destabilizing the economical situation further, putting different threats on the population when it comes to personal health risks.
And
so on. So what do you think, how will Kosovo look like in 6 months if everything proceeds like it is at the moment?
So right now, for example, it was discussed that the second and the third party would come together and make the new government. But there was a decision by the Constitution a couple of years ago, as far as I remember, that stated that the party with the most votes is supposed to be part of the coalition. and to be part of the government. So this is like a main issue right now, which is being discussed. And in 6 months, this is just speculation, but in 6 months, I hope that the situation won't be as critical, like regarding the corona crisis. And I believe then that there will be some elections, and that I personally believe, just based on the mood and atmosphere that I see on social media, that the party that got the most votes last time will get even more votes this time. So the party that or the government that was passing the orders that were not in line with the constitution. So that's my guess.
Okay, so this decision by the Constitutional Court that the strongest party needs to be in the government sounds also a little bit weird to me, which brings me to the question: who exactly is in the Constitutional Court, and how are these people elected? Are they elected by the people, or are they appointed by the president, or how do you become a member of the Constitutional Court in Kosovo?
That's a good question. I can't answer that. I haven't. I didn't do research on.
Okay. Yeah. So I would assume that would be interesting to know, because it might explain perhaps why the Constitutional Court plays such an important role. And we will check this and probably put it into the show notes if you want. It will be interesting to see. Will be interesting to see. Okay, so but when I see all this, I think the debates that we have here in Austria about whether or not an app should be used, or whether or not people should wear face masks, and whether or not they are allowed to use public transport, etc., looks very trivial to you, I would assume. Is there anything in the Austrian debate that you see that is important also in Kosovo? So something that is specifically interesting or important to the people in the constitutional debate that we have here in Austria at the moment ongoing?
So the priorities are just different right now. You know, in Austria, people, as you mentioned, are talking about data protection and privacy rights, which is not. I mean, in Kosovo, you have like privacy rights and data protection rights in the constitution, but it's not in the main focus right now, because we're dealing with different things. In Austria, I mean, yeah, I can't really think of something now.
Do you know whether the European Commission has does that have any influence on the ongoing debate in Kosovo? So does the Commission have a standpoint on this constitutional crisis that you would be aware of? Is that debated somewhere in day-to-day politics?
I'm not aware of that. But what I would like to emphasize is, for example, that the European Union has always been a mediator between Kosovo and Serbia since the war outbreak, and that they are trying the best to come to an agreement as of right now. There have been some news and statements from the EU, as far as I remember that that it is not the best time to not coming to agreement right now because of the corona crisis. So, but this is, yes, that's pretty obvious.
But I think, I mean, if I may, and probably it's a very stupid question and remark, but still, please allow me to ask that. I mean, if it's impossible to find some kind of basic agreement between the government, the president, and the Constitutional Court on such a relatively trivial question as how intensely should we fight a catastrophic pandemic, it's completely impossible to find an agreement in anything which is politically more complex and more sensitive, which would be, for example, the relationship with Serbia, I would assume. So if it's not even working in Corona, how should that ever work when it comes to a post-war situation with a neighbor like Serbia?
Yes, this is a really good question. I mean, Kosovo has been struggling a lot since it declared its dependencies, and there have been ongoing like struggles between the parties, and governments were overthrown. And this time, even the government in place was in office for about 50 days. That's like the shortest time for government to be in office in the history of Kosovo. Yeah, so we still have to learn. I guess we can learn a lot about how it is going in Austria regarding this. And I simply hope, but yeah, it's rather complicated. But in both parties, there are people who are really trying their best to make this happen and work and to come together in this crisis. But if you have the numbers, then you have this no confidence vote for the prime minister, and then the government simply falls apart. But the reason why this is happening is really due to like really different political reasons. Some related to corruption, and not all of them related to the corona crisis itself. So it has like really deep roots when it comes to that.
Yeah. By the way, somebody kindly gave us a hint about the election of the members of the Constitutional Court in the show notes or in the comments, writing that the judges of Constitutional Court are elected from the president and have to be proposed from the Assembly of the Republic of Kosovo. So it's not the government, it's the Assembly and then the president, according to this. And another person even giving us a source for this, which is Article 114 of the Constitution, saying judges shall be appointed by the President of the Republic upon the proposal of the Assembly and shall serve for a non-renewable mandate of 9 years.
Okay, so it makes sense why the decision was so fast, I guess.
Yes. But that is, this is also interesting because in many cases I am aware of, the Constitutional Court is not only elected by the parliament, obviously for reasons like this one here, which is that in this power game between president, parliament, and government, if it's just one of the three electing the members, it's quite likely that their perception of the legal case is quite similar to the body electing them.
Yes, exactly.
That's really interesting. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Tina. What did you? Sorry.
Let's see how this develops. Let's see what happens in the next few months.
Yes, absolutely. And let's hope for the best then, that it's developing well. Yeah. Let me, however, if I may kindly slowly come to an end of this conversation. If you look into what we are doing here in Austria at the moment and what we are facing here in Austria at the moment, which is that some of the measures are relieved now, and that from the 1st of May, other rules will apply. The feeling that, or the hope many people have in this, is that the measures taken so far were strictly and rigidly enough taken to make it possible now to loosen everything a little bit. Is this a perception that also is shared by people in Kosovo, so that hopefully things will be better in 2 or 3 weeks and that the situation will then be better? Or is it more, again, that there's so much uncertainty and unclarity that people don't really think about how it will be in 2 or 3 weeks?
People are hoping that the situation will improve within the next few weeks, but there is an unofficial statement that even over the summer, bars and restaurants will be closed, but it's still unofficial, so it's not official. But as far as I see, people are still not ready, at least in Kosovo, to loosen the measures right now, because the risk is simply higher that the healthcare system won't be able to deal with it. So as far as I see, it's more like the motto, be safe than sorry. Like.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Tina. That was, in many of these conversations, I feel a little bit lost at the end because of the the complexity of the problems, and also the different aspects of the problem and how they play together. This is a very extreme example now for political crisis on top of health crisis. Probably the most problematic example we had here in this series of talks so far. And what is striking is that there is so little coverage of this in our news at the moment. So I really appreciate your input in helping us to better understand the situation in another part of Europe. Is there anything I should have asked and I didn't ask, or anything that you want to add?
I just would like to add that people are really, like, at least the population, they're really working together and trying their best to overcome this crisis. And I just hope that people stay safe and just comply as much as possible, as long as they think it's in line with the constitution, I guess. And I just hope that we won't have many people dying in the end. So that's my only wish for now.
Yeah, we certainly share this wish. Yeah. Tina, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for this very insightful talk. I appreciate this. Have a good day. Stay safe and stay healthy here, and take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.